Hey everybody, how's it going? Today we are live. I'm joined by Jerry Lee Medeiros from Sun Phaser Manufacturing, Justin Armenta from JA Digitizing Studios, Matthew Enderle from Patch Phrase, and I am Jeff Fuller from Fuller Embroidery Works. And today we are all here representing the Embroidery Nerd. And we have today a Digitizing 911. We had somebody send in a file that they wanted us to go over, so I clicked the button 3 times. It makes it seem like, really emergency type.
We need the sirens, though.
Matt doesn't have he's the guy that has the lights and stuff set up for that. So
You are too much.
we need to add those back. Let me click on the internet. But we have, I believe this is Dustin here from Spokane, Washington. We have
Oh, yeah, Dustin. Hey, buddy.
from North Central Minnesota. We have Letty from Walkerwood Creations here joining us, all on YouTube. I like the YouTube music. We have Fred here from Cleveland, Ohio, and he is joined by his beard.
I'm joined by my tea.
All right, and today we have a Digitizing 911, so I am going to bring up the design and all the 8,000 buttons here on the screen. And that is the design that was sent in to us. The complaint, I guess, was that it was more than one color, 9 colors, more than 9 colors. And then I'm not quite sure if there was an issue with the way it ran. They did say that there was a lot of like random trims everywhere, that there shouldn't be. But if we go ahead and click on the player and we stop it by trim, we can see that it does the stem of the apple, and it does the fill of a leaf, and then the outline of a leaf, the fill of an apple, the outline of an apple, eraser, outline.
I'm so glad you are telling me what these shapes are.
So tell me, what is the size of this? What is this to go on?
This is,
I think it was a sweatshirt, right?
176 millimeters.
Okay, so it's a full front then.
It's about 7 inches wide, roughly 2 inches tall. They did add text across the bottom.
Okay.
So that was a design element that was added on. But it looks like it does like a central element, and then it throws down an outline on top of it. Interestingly enough, as you guys can see here, I have the stitch file. I pulled in the .pes file. For those who don't know, PES files retain the color information. And so that way I was able to see kind of the different colors that were specified in the design. We have Eric here listening in while working as usual. We have Crystal here. We have Betty Jean, good evening. And Barb here asks, what software are you using? Thanks. This is Wilcom E4.5, the latest suite from Wilcom. And we have Mike Muldowney. Hey, I'm eating tacos for Taco Tuesday. I'll take tacos.
It is Taco Tuesday everywhere. So I have noticed a little something in this design, and that is that there are really close colors to one another that look to be maybe just a different hue, and they're maybe a little bit different color. Like the yellows and the reds, they're real similar.
They are very, very similar. And if I jump up in the color here, like we have 5, and that's interesting because right here you can see it pulled it in as 2 separate colors. 2 separate color changes, but it's the same color.
Yeah, and several times it's actually.
It looks like each segment is filled a color, and it's supposed to be either a darker or lighter shade of that same color as the outline.
Yeah, and that's kind of what I saw. But like you can see here, these 2 colors are different. The outline on the eraser is different. These
that makes sense, but around the apple and stuff doesn't make sense to me.
Yeah, it doesn't make a lot of sense. I will agree on that. It does look like because they did. I should not have hit that button. Because they did run stitch a light fill. It looks like when they got to the bottom, rather than start the stitch at the bottom and run around, they started at the same spot as the outline.
Oh,
instead of pathing it. And I'm guessing that they did some of that. Let me go into the player here to avoid the traveling on the edge that you would get if you ran back up to that spot. So instead of running back up, they're trying to like hide their start, stop lock stitches up here where the design is a little bit busier.
well, one moment. Why wouldn't you? If it's three layers of the same color, but is it three layers of the same color? First of all,
Now there, it's a singular light density fill. So I guess the idea in this is that the color shines through of the original garment as well.
okay. So okay, now because what they could have done, why couldn't have they just moved their starts and stops and like had the start of one at the top, then stop at the bottom, then the other one start at the bottom, and then stop at the top? Is there a reason that that couldn't happen instead of pathing?
Um, I don't really see one. The only reason that I can possibly think is that they're trying to hide their lock stitches up here,
Okay,
where the
well, you can
design's a
say
little
that.
bit bulkier.
Okay.
But I would have, like honestly, I would have started down here and ran up, and then went down and back both sides, kind of like you would do on a hat.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, to each their own, I guess. More than one way to skin a cat.
There is.
Um, I would have definitely, like the eraser, I would have put the same color outline um,
Hmm.
on there as well. Just like the same for all of these elements. If I was going to throw an outline on them, I'd make it the same color as each of the elements.
Hmm.
You're going to get the difference in light that's going to shine off of at a different angle. You're still going to see the outline. It's just not going to be a shade off.
But
So
this is like 7 inches wide, right?
roughly, yeah.
Yeah.
So it seems to me, honestly, this is a real cute little design. And what I first get is, which probably all of us do as school teacher. This is what I'm seeing is like it's going on a tote, maybe. Well, it might be definitely for a tote then because it's got outlines instead of a satin. So I was going to say if it's going on like a sweatshirt or something, those outlines aren't really going to be seen that much. So, but
I
if they
mean,
have outlines
you
like that,
you could throw this down on vinyl because it is such a wide open
mhm.
spacing. I
But
would
I'm
see this.
thinking of the registration
Yeah, I
of
could
the
see
outline.
that. Yep.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna grab a couple of more comments. So Barb says, "Awesome as I'm looking to upgrade from Wilcom Hatch 2."
Good.
Uh, Boycott Watch. Fred here. I switched from Facebook to YouTube to help build your viewer hours. Thank
Oh,
you very much,
thanks,
sir.
Fred.
One of the free ways to help us is to watch us on YouTube. And we have Cindy here. Good evening.
Hey, Cindy.
Betty Jean, was it originally digitized for applique? Maybe. So it's not. And we can tell that because of the run stitch outlines. If it was originally for like applique, you would have satin stitch on outlines so that you could hide the cut of the fabric afterwards. Eric says these sketch fill designs are increasingly common. With intentionally open work, hiding flaws is certainly harder, and you'll have short edge stitches. Yep. So that's what I would do. The initial part of this. The first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to build everything. I would build everything as objects, and to do that, I would need to measure the spacing, which I can tell here is roughly, and I'm going to take it out of inches because I can't think in inches. That's kind of sad.
You need to learn yourself that, son.
So we're about a 1 millimeter density with roughly a. Justin probably has all this stuff measured
Like
already.
you took a class on this.
I could just look at it and know what it is.
4 millimeter density. You just look at it and know what it is. I
That's
closed my eyes and touched the screen, and now I know it. So
Gotta get out of the mind of flat embroidery digitizing.
no,
That is no dimension.
flat is how it goes around here. I'm pretty sure that there is a video on that.
I've heard rumor.
I was actually, so let's get everybody's take on this. I was
Yes,
debating here coming up for the 1 year anniversary to go through a bunch of the lives that we've done for the year and put together a blooper reel.
Wow, you'd be the star? What? That was my outside voice.
I would be the star.
Isn't it like the 2-year anniversary?
Well, yeah.
Yes, it is actually. It is actually. That's true.
I guess I should not have said anniversary and said something more along the lines of no
No, anniversary works.
reunion. No.
No, that's when we're all in LA, Matthew. Just saying.
So I get the original object here. Oh, don't do that, Jeff.
Let's see where those stitch inserts are, please.
Well, I mean, I could show you. That's every single stitch is turned into a node.
Oh,
Um,
I was being facetious, but okay, I like it. I think it's pretty.
See, there you
Oh,
go.
that was really actually pretty if you could make a stitch design. That's kind of cool.
That's
So
what
one of the issues with doing that is that if you do it and there's a million stitches, it can crash your computer.
Oh, well then, never mind.
Guess how I know? Guess how I know?
need
I
a
call
new
that
computer then.
experience.
I do need a new computer. I blame the internet.
Your 96 gigs of RAM isn't enough.
I know. I need more.
Downloadmoreram.com.
All right, for everybody viewing, please don't go there.
I'm pretty sure it's downloadram.com. But
All right, so we get
Don't
that.
listen to Matthew. Really.
We need to change our backstitch settings to match here. And after all of that, I'm going to delete this original element. And then I would go ahead and do the run stitch. And it's important to note too, when we're looking at this, and we turn that on, one of the more difficult aspects that they have is you can see that it had a travel stitch in there. And so you have to be really careful because some software likes to throw the travel stitch out there away from the edge. So we need to turn on Trapunto so that we can have that go there. And I will go ahead and hit that.
Wait, Jeff, come back, please. We need to turn this to Trapunto so that will go there. Come back. Not every software has Trapunto. You want to please explain that?
So Trapunto or Travel on Edge would be.
Okay, so in Pulse it's called Edge Walk. Interesting. Okay.
In
So that's
Wilcom, they call it Trapunto.
that is really well. See what's interesting about that is that's actually like tatami. Tatami is a stitch pattern. It's not what a fill is, although in Wilcom that's what they call it. And trapunto is the same. It's actually a form of embroidery stitch. It's a digitizable thing. It's a pattern. So that's why I'm like, wait, come back because I want to first of all understand it myself, the translation, and make sure that everybody understands that a rose is a rose is a rose. We just have to know all the names. So thanks.
No problem.
I'm
You
good.
know, you get used to what your software calls it.
Yeah.
Sometimes you forget that
Yeah.
it's not the same in every software.
No. And Wacom is really different. Like using actual stitch pattern names for something that encompasses a whole lot when it's actually just one thing. So that's really pretty cool. I mean, pretty interesting. It could be very confusing.
so can you not just do a simple offset? Just to kind of create the outside shape?
Of this stitch here.
Yeah.
So I cannot, and part of that is because I leave it in as manual run stitches, so I don't break it into objects when I bring it in. And if I brought it in as individual objects, where it would break it up into objects, I could do the offset. Where I do it this way, it would it would try to follow every node and do an offset off of every node.
So what have you done to rescue this design thus far?
So far, I have, let me push this button before I forget. I've turned this into an object here, and I've changed the pathing so that it starts here, ends here, and then it also goes around there. So I'm respecting that they wanted the tie-ins and tie-offs up here at the top.
What about the differentiation of colors? I mean, that needs to be combined.
So
Not six different colors.
that's another thing that I'm doing here as well, is that if it's a stitch object with, this and that, they're the same color, the same outline. I would just throw the same color outline on there because, you don't really want to have to change that. On an industrial embroidery machine, you don't want to have that many color changes in, and on a home machine, you don't want to rethread it that many times.
No, because most often home machines are single needle, although there now are, I believe, 6 needles, if I'm not incorrect.
10.
But yeah, you want to like start cutting down all those color changes.
Yeah.
Big. Cool. Thank you.
So I've went ahead and done that portion. This I would just leave the same. It's
Mhm.
not,
I like that actually.
yeah, it's perfectly good. So I'm gonna grab a couple of comments here. We have uh, Dustin laughing. We have Wood
Fred,
Not Watch Fred saying
Fred,
32 gig of RAM here. I'm sitting
nice.
at 96, but I don't think I've rebooted my computer for a month and a half. So
I don't have that.
Uh, Eric, I know the pain of expressing all the measurements in 2 ways
Yeah.
and all the tool names. Yeah, the sticking with colors here. And Cindy, I'm watching on my phone, so it's harder to see the stitch types are. So it is a tatami fill or a double tatami. It is a single tatami fill with a 1 millimeter density.
Okay, I want to stop just for a minute here to belabor this point. A tatami fill, tatami is actually a stitch type, a
A pattern.
a pattern. Yes, it's a pattern. It's like cornrow or basket weave. Tatami is actually a stitch pattern. So in Pulse, it's called complex fill. I don't know why they call it complex, but it's a fill. And so, what is it in? You use wings, Justin. What is it in wings? Is it called tatami as well? A fill, or do you
Yes.
know?
Yes, it is. It's been a while since I've used wings. Yeah, it's called a tatami.
Okay, so just so that we know that for people who do, I don't want new digitizers out there and new software users to get confused when they hear it this way and that way. There is a difference. So as long as you know that, it's okay to go forward. There we go. Thank you.
So in Wilcom, the input tools are complex fill, and the pattern is tatami.
Yeah.
But actually, when you click on yeah, it's tatami.
Mm,
Um, but I've always, every time as I learned, let me put it that way, as I learned, they always called it a tatami fill.
right. Well, you've
So
always been more you've been in the Wilcom world. What is it in Brilliance? What is it called, Eric? Probably.
I was just gonna say, I believe it's
Hey,
complex
you,
fill.
Eric.
I just launched it. I was looking to see.
Thank you.
We're gonna open all the softwares, find out. No, I'm not doing
It's
that.
been a while though.
Yeah.
My
Well,
computer would have a heart attack.
well, it's called something.
Yep.
In wings, it's called a step.
A step. Okay.
Mhm.
So a fill is called a step.
Yes.
That's very interesting.
So Daryl here says complex fill and
Flex fill.
Floriani.
Okay. Okay.
Yep.
Hmm.
So it's interesting how manufacturers would change the names of
Yeah.
something like that.
Yeah. It can be very confusing.
So let me pull back up my screen here. Eric says it's called fill. However, we have a tatami pattern that many use.
There we go.
Um,
Exactly.
I think in Wilcom it just automatically defaults to the tatami.
Maybe that's why it's called that because it defaults to that particular pattern.
That's a very high likelihood.
Aren't I astute tonight? It's the tea.
So Matt pulled his up here.
Yeah, this is in Brilliance. So here's the pattern that Eric was talking about for tatami,
Okay.
and there's cornrow.
Oh yeah. And oh, I loved cornrow. Cornrow is a lot of fun, and brick is fun. There's some really fun ones out there. See, I like that. I think that's cool. It looks kind of like jean material.
You know, it's interesting because I don't think very many people ever go away from the default. They just use the default fill
Oh, I
type.
did. I did in Pulse. because that's what I'm so familiar with just yet until I get my Wilcom going. But they have a in the high level maestro, which is what I had. I could make my own patterns, and I really enjoyed that. Where I could just go create them, and then I could save it and use it. And there was one time that really came into play, and that's when I needed the pattern of a golf ball, and nobody could create it. And somehow I managed it. I don't know how. I did not save the pattern. I used it for the design. It was a huge success, and I was never ever able to duplicate that again.
Man.
Yeah, it sucked.
So Eric says, that said, if you measure offsets, you will find that not all tatami patterns are exactly the same.
Correct.
That I believe. In Wilcom, we can throw, like, we can play with the offset fractions, and we can throw in partitions lines, but it's like it's really random, and it would be nice if like I knew what those like the offset fraction. I don't know what A affects and what B affects,
Mm.
and how that they would adjust the stitch pattern. It'd be really nice to be able to know that kind of information, because if you know what your offset's going to be when you change one of those values, you can start to kind of play with where your needle penetrations are going to
But you
fall.
could figure that out by actually doing one, then the other, then both, and creating a stitch file and stitching it out. Right?
No, I've tried.
Oh, so
It
then
flips them laterally the same way.
oh, then you'll have to call Wilcom and ask them.
Yeah, that's
Hi, Teresa.
that's going to be James, I think.
Hi,
Uh,
James.
Jerry says, thanks for explaining that. I have chroma and drawings. I'm trying to convert the language and screen as we go. May I ask what design you are working on or fixing up? This is a design that was sent in to us by a user that they were having problems with the number of color changes and the different amount of numbers. And
Trims, right?
it
Twist
was
trims.
more colors, but they also weren't happy with, like, it would do the fill and then it would tie off and come back and it would trim and then do the outline. And so
That would drive me up the wall. That is such a time waster. Every single trim takes 5 to 10 seconds. It's got to tie in, cut, move, go tie in again. It's so much. If you can avoid trims, that's the golden standard. You
I
need to
mean,
avoid as many as possible.
and even with that, you've got the tails on the back.
Yeah,
And so
you
now
do.
not only do you have the trim, now you've got more clutter on the back side of the embroidery that you're
Yeah.
going to fill.
Yep.
So slowly, I'm just going to keep going through these objects. I'm checking again. I want to set my stop points. I want to make sure that I'm traveling on edge. And when I do have like intersecting objects like this, and there's more than one, let me close that out. Should have done that before we started. But when we have intersecting objects like this, it's nice to be able to try and bury the trims in more dense of an area versus having them over here where they would stick out a little bit more. The eraser, I'm definitely going to do the same color.
Yeah.
I'm not quite sure why they would.
That makes for registration issues as well. I mean, when you're working on something that's 7 or 8 inches wide, you're working with a long hoop, and your corners on that hoop may not be very tight. And when you've got something like that going on, a run stitch would not be where I'd be going, for sure.
No, and like actually, when I do these types of designs, and I think this is my personal preference, but I'm a big fan of doing the back stitch, just because it sets your needle penetrations. It sets that it run a little bit wider, so you have more of an opportunity for it to hide things.
Can you show what do you mean by back stitch?
So they call it a back stitch, and I'll go ahead and put it on this outline here
Thank
that
you.
I have done, and not that one, the one next to it. So
That's pretty chill though. Now I'm liking that. I do like that quite a bit. Pulse doesn't have that.
yeah, so it's basically
Cool.
3 strokes per
So
step.
dun, 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 dun.
Yeah,
Okay.
and
It's like a pin stitch, but yeah, I see how it's like kind of yeah.
yep, and so we can play with the values here to get make the stitches a little bit longer depending on what we're going on. But I'm a big fan of that just because it fattens out that line, and so
Yes.
you worry a little bit less about nailing that outline precisely because you have a little bit more width to work with.
Yeah, you do, and I really like that. I have not seen that before, so it's impressive.
So I'm going to grab a couple comments here. We have Crystal. It has it in the
Wow.
manual what the
Okay.
offsets do.
Oh,
I'll read
cool.
the manual,
I
maybe.
pulled it up.
Matt pulled it up. Yeah. So Crystal, yes, avoid trims. I pulled a design at work
Gosh,
through other day. 36 trims on a left chest. I
that's horrible.
redigitized it with 10. Yeah, it's definitely interesting depending on too, are you trying to do it for production or are you trying to do it for, home designs? They'll put up with a few more trims because they're just
Only because
sitting
they're
there.
stuck. Only because they have to, or they don't know better. Seriously, that's a horrible thing to have to tolerate.
All right, and we'll
Oh,
knock
I like that.
away there,
Hmm.
travel on edge,
I
and
like that better.
broken effects. If I was really smart, I would,
Well, you are, but
no, if I was really smart, you can actually right click and make the properties of that object current, and then just right click and apply the current properties onto
oh,
each
well,
object.
there you go.
It saves a little bit of time, but for some reason I'm struggle busting it today, I think. I think it has to do with the time of day too. All right, so I've got that. This actually, you can see that they did. I don't think that they ran the outline underneath right there. Um,
Are you going to
go ahead
change
and drop
that?
it here.
Yes.
So their outline just went up and around. They didn't run it down through right here.
Hmm.
So I think we'll just go ahead and do that the same.
Nice.
Um,
That's nice.
there
A
and
lot more like a friggin' pencil, eraser. I mean, here in America, we're very used to um, that really harsh outline stuff. That what Lee Caroselli calls cartoon digitizing is that really thick outline, and it's just not natural looking. Everything looks very cartoony.
all right. So hit that, paint the same color, and we'll hit it on the back stitch. I'm going to grab a couple of comments here. Cindy, since the apple and eraser appear to be the same color, would you rearrange your colors to connect the apple and the eraser? So the apple and the eraser are different colors. It looks like the eraser and the pencil portion are the same color with an apple style, apple color outline. I personally, and I think this is just a personal choice, is that I prefer to do one object completely and then move on to the next object. And mainly that's because of registration. You're going to get this being this light of a design, you would probably be okay to color sort like that. But like I know a lot of times when I do patches, if I do, the backfill on 4 patches, by the time I get back to the first patch and want to put down the detail on it, I'm going to miss because the fabric's going to pull and everything's going to shift in the hoop.
Yeah.
So with this, you could probably do that. Matt pulled up the other computer, but yeah, with this design, you could probably color sort. If it had more of a denser fill, I would probably not color sort. And I tend to lean on the side of doing a complete object and then moving on myself. But I think that becomes kind of personal preference. Barb, when you are doing the back stitch, does it increase the stitch count of the design
It
overall?
would have to.
Yes, it does. We are throwing down more stitches. It kind of turns into a trade-off. So I'm trading off adding a few more stitches to have a better chance of the outline lining up versus having, a lower stitch count and the possibility of it
Well,
coming out.
that's something that I want to point out from, and Justin, I think we've seen this, and I know Jeff and Matthew, you guys already have too. But Justin, remember back when it's like, oh my God, you have to take every single stitch out that's possible. And that's really painstaking when everything is based on the stitch count. The design will tell you what it needs to be. And when people really get hung up on stitch count, you can lose quality because you're basically bending over to pick up a dime while a dollar flies by. It's
Right.
quality, quality, quality.
Exactly. I mean, there's stitch saving techniques that you can use that aren't going to take away from quality. I tend to just use them now in general, so it does save on stitch count. But there's times where you just have to digitize in a way that the quality is going to be there and not have to worry about the extra stitches.
Yep.
All right. So I went ahead and did that. And you can see here that they've got a few trims, like 2 tie-ins and a tie-off there. And one of the things that I am also very stickler about is you want to be careful when you're throwing trim on top of trim on top of trim, because each one of those leaves a tail on the backside. And those tails get bunched up under the next knot, and now it leaves a little bit more tail and a little bit more tail. And eventually you're going to run into it where you're going to have a poke. Words are not working for me right now. Like a poke or a little horn coming off the backside of the embroidery. It's going to be really rough against your skin and it's going to scratch. So I try not to stack too many on top of each other. And so for this object, I would move. I'd move one of the trims down there. I've already moved the tie-in over there. It's going to trim there. This I'll probably tie in here and trim here. And then the next object here is also going to tie in there and more than likely trim right there. It does seem to have excessive tie-ins and tie-outs, but I think that's because of the way that they handle the outlines as making them separate and trimming. Let me go ahead and...
Well, another thing that I want to point out before we go too far is if when you stack tie in and tie out on top of one another, on top of one another, on top of one another, you're forcing material down into your hook area, and you can cause a disruption by jamming a lot of thread in there. You can cause your machine to stop by constantly pounding in one area. Plus, not only do you get the horn, but your design, if you have a horn on the back of it poking, where's the material it's sinking in? So you have a weird little thing going on the front of the whatever it is as well.
So I don't know if I like that.
I like that better though. Seriously, I do like that a little bit better. It kind of makes that accent area pop. You could even do that in a nice metallic.
It actually looks kind of more realistic because if
Yeah.
you look at the actual crimping of it, it
Mhm.
does have
Yeah.
the banding around both ends.
I like that a lot.
So I think it is actually better that way. I mean,
Mhm.
on screen, whether or not it'll look like that in person.
Yeah, we have to remember, as Eric says, it's all pretend. I think that's what you say, right, Eric? It's not real out there, folks. It's a big illusion. What's on screen isn't really real. It's what is computer generated. You have to stitch it out to really know.
This is what happens when Jeff deletes the wrong object. There we go.
Are you
That
having
one
fun in there?
and that one.
I like that.
We'll go with that.
Okay.
All right. And so, this is just going to be a lot of me following the object here to redigitize the objects. It would probably have been better if I would have pulled it in my software and had it bring it in and convert it as objects, because then I could just take the objects and duplicate them and offset them. I don't necessarily like doing that because you also get the object properties. So things like tie-ins and tie-outs, you have to go in and change them to match up. And so I just prefer to do it to trace all my objects versus pulling in as objects.
So basically, this design needs redigitization in several areas because whatever it is cannot be actually manipulated to do something different.
I mean, I would personally, when I first saw the design,
Is that hot mess?
my mind went right to redigitizing it, as
And
opposed
tell us why though. Tell us why. Why?
because of the number of colors that came in. as
Okay.
well as each of the outlines going off. When you bring in a piece of an object-based file into your software, there's a good possibility it's going to break up one original object into multiple objects.
Yes.
Um,
Yes, that happens.
for instance, like the underlay will pull out separately, any traveling stitches will pull out separately. Your satins, like this satin here, we can tell it's a satin stitch, but because it ends here, it would break it into two separate objects.
Mm-hmm. Good.
Another reason why I do that is it treats all the lock stitches and manual stitches, and then it puts in lock stitches on top of that. So then you run into twice as many lock stitches as you're going in. So it can actually increase your stitch count a little bit. So I personally, when I bring a design in, I don't convert it to objects. I just work with either the raw stitch data or I digitize it from scratch.
So someone who receives a file like this is going to need to consider that as a fix or deal with everything that's happening here and just have 82 trims and 39 color changes.
Yeah, it runs into kind of an efficiency thing. You can sit there and you can play with the editing, and you may be able to change it faster in the editing of the settings
Mhm.
versus redigitizing, or a lot of times you can redigitize it faster than you can go in and
If you're
make all the
digitizing,
small adjustments.
It
if you're
also
digitizer though,
it also depends on the level of software that you have too.
and skill.
All good things to consider.
I think you should have used the
So
stitch editor and we'll fix it that way.
really,
No, I'm not going to manually change every single
I should
stitch.
never listen to anything you over there say, sir.
Just boot me out.
No, 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 no. We want you right where you're at.
We'll move me down the totem pole.
We've got the demotion list. I've been demoted the most.
You
Jerry
certainly.
Lee's currently sitting at their number one.
I need your shirt. I'll give you mine. You're number 3. Let's trade.
All right. So, going through, Eric says the product of Digitizer is embroidery and not the file, correct? And the screen is line, of course.
Yes, that's what you say. The screen is dying. It's true.
Bear Mountain Embroidery, I believe, is who sent in the file and said you all can change it however, as long as it's not 89 color swatches.
So, Bear Mountain Embroidery, thank you for donating this design to us tonight. We appreciate you.
And Crystal, there's a button to process a selected object.
Sounds like you need a digitizing lesson there, Jiffy.
I probably do.
Jiffy.
A lot of times people stop with whatever works for them first.
And
I know that my software has a lot of features that I don't know how to use.
What softwares do you own?
Do we need to send you to Australia for a class?
They have classes in Georgia.
Where'd you going then?
I know half the time I digitize things manually that there's probably a button I can push and it does it itself.
Yeah.
Just because I'm geared towards that.
You have more control as well. When you hand punch something, you have much more control than over what a computer will do.
Yep. Well, and one thing to take out of that too is we all have almost all software has 3 tools. You have your run stitch tool, your satin tool, and your complex fill tool.
And guess what? They're all one stitch, and I'm going to take issue with that all the way to town. Walter Floriani always said there's 3 stitches. No, there is not. There's one freaking stitch. It's the run stitch. If you don't have that, you have no stitch. It's the run stitch.
Right.
Yeah.
But software has those 3 different input methods.
Yep.
And every software has that. And so I can go from one software to another, because when I'm digitizing something, I look for those 3 main tools because that's what I use the most. The rest of it becomes settings, the difference in settings. Wilcom, when it goes around in a letter or it goes around a curve, it'll shorten the stitch length, which is something that I really like compared to other software that leaves it at a fixed stitch length. So it's just kind of the nuances from different softwares, but it doesn't matter what software you have or You don't have to have the top end of the software to digitize like a lot of people do, because almost everybody uses, the run stitch, the satin column, the complex fill tool.
Yep.
And it's, there are things that can make it faster, but they're all essentially the same tool. Same tools across brands.
And there's 3 ways in every software that I've ever met. There's at least 3 ways to get to the same spot. You're just like under a different menu, they're called something else, but there's at least 3 ways to get where you need to be in your software to access the tool.
All right. I'm pushing buttons. We're thinking.
Okay, we need some comments, Jiffy.
This is dangerous.
Jeff is thinking. Processing. I'm a little slow today. Why don't I see comments?
I don't know. You must have left the studio.
I left the studio. There we go. Okay, so we got to come up here. So I think that was the last one. Bear Mountain says, anytime this digitizer had my OCD everywhere with this.
Yeah, I tell you, mine too. And I'm not even the digitizer.
So we have a link here to Eric's website, theonlystitch.com.
There you go.
We have Valentina. Hello, everyone, from Bakersfield, California.
Hello.
Crystal says, I had a DSG the other day with a weird fill pattern. I didn't use the object created, but the stitch processor got me offset numbers to recreate the pattern. It's handy sometimes, but not always. Very cool.
Yeah.
Eric, always happy to plug you.
Always.
We have Dustin's test. That's probably me not being able to see the comments. I was on the wrong tab. So we'll just throw me out of the room for a little bit, and I think we'll all be okay. All right. So I'm going to just grab the object properties from there, and I'm going to apply it to the latest object that I did. And Justin, you've already gone through this, right?
I have.
All right. So let's go ahead and pull up your screen.
Yeah, let's see what Justin did.
So that we can see kind of what changes you would do. So let me go back here.
Yeah, because I went totally different.
You went totally different.
Oh, I can't wait. Let's see that.
I lean towards more on the non-digitizing side, only because I didn't know if the end user had digitizing software or not. So.
Oh,
all right.
God. Whoa.
So I went the route of just doing all the outlines in one color, just to simplify.
I like that too.
Just to simplify color changes. So basically, like I think Cindy brought up, I did group these 2 objects together and then came back and did the outline. So we draw. So to save a color change here, I grouped the stem and the leaf. Came back with the fill of the apple. Did go ahead and do the pencil. And Jeff is right though. Usually I would do object by object only for registration purposes.
Yeah.
The fact that there is light fills, you're not going to have as much pulling and tugging on that fabric to knock out a registration. I was leaning more towards the side of trying to get the color changes down. So that's why I grouped those 2 objects together, and that way they can do the outline at the same time, and that would be on one color change. Because the amount of color changes I finally got total on this was only 18 instead of the 41.
Wow.
So again,
and still somebody's still going to have to be switching. So how many actual colors are in this design for real?
Actual colors is 15.
Okay. So Bear Mountain, how many colors do you have on your machine? How many needles?
And again, the amount of needles and the amount of colors you have, if you're not wanting to switch out combs, that's really going to dictate the amount of colors that you can put in or that you want to put in this design.
Yes.
So right there, limitations depending on your machine itself. It's gonna and what you want to do. There is times where if you have a 12 needle machine and it's 15 colors, you got to figure out switching out those last three cones on the needles throughout your design.
Looks
Uh,
like you're
so
saying so.
so yeah, this is 15 colors, 18 color changes. If you did every individual object with its own outline at the same time, it only goes up to 21 color changes. So there is saving that three color changes by grouping those objects together.
Hmm.
So it's again, it's just a different approach. This is an approach of non-digitizing at all. I just took the elements there was, resequenced them, grouped colors together, and that way you kind of get the same feel as what it was before, and not having to go into actual digitizing the elements over again to get where you're going. So
Yep.
just a different way of looking at it, and kind of basing it off the idea that the end user either A doesn't have digitizing software or doesn't know how to digitize. So
Right. And you always need to assume that if somebody needs help with the design, are you trying to like figure out also what they need, what they can do, and what they can't, and what they need to learn that will help them in the future. Like if they don't have the software, then then that isn't a conversation to
right.
have. Like help them out, and there you go.
The only thing that I do see here, because each individual piece had its own outline, like Jeff was doing, where you're sharing the fill with the outline, so it's all in the same
Hmm.
color sequence. Because there's individual pieces of those outlines. Doing it this way, you are either going to have the trim still, because the outlines don't necessarily start and stop at the places that you need to have a continuous run, or if you go through and you grab your pieces of outline and see where the start and stop points are, you may have to add either some manual or some running stitches to get to and from the start and stop points of those elements that are already there, just to keep that needle down running and no trims.
I think we lost Jeff.
I think he left.
Rest in peace.
I think Jeff left. That's what I think.
It's like,
Yeah,
I quit.
Jiffy
he
took
threw
better,
he
and
threw the he threw the design in my lap and took off.
he laughed. I know. He said, "Well, that's it, folks. Bye."
I would pull up comments, but I don't remember where we were at.
Oh, we were at okay. Okay, go up to Dustin. Test, test. Go up. There we go. Okay, so okay,
Oh,
yes.
we
Now
already
go
did
down.
that
Now
one.
go down there. Okay, what is this design going on? Yes. Okay.
It
Okay.
was totes, right?
I don't know. You got to go down
Oh, wait,
another
never
one.
mind. I knew I read
Oh,
it somewhere.
oh, how cute! That's gonna be cute. Really cute.
And she said she has 19 of them to do. So going from 89 colors to, you said 15.
Yeah, life
Pretty.
just got so much better. Sheesh.
And then Cindy saying, okay, thank you. Just wondering how heavy of a design it is.
Well, that makes sense why it's a run stitch on a 7.5 or so wide design. It's the run
Yeah,
because
this is only 7,000 stitches on a 7 inch
nice.
wide design. So
Oh,
And
that's gonna
that's
be fast.
$7, right?
Cool. Good, Justin.
Then,
You did good.
yep. So we
You got
established
it there.
15 needles. Letty is spilling drinks on her keyboard.
It is called the needle bar for some reason. I
Yeah,
don't
I
know.
mean, yeah, you got to have a drink with you.
Yeah,
Mine's
dude,
out of
that's
reach.
over
Reach
here.
or it would be gone by now. Cindy saying connections very important for a smooth run. That
Yep.
is certainly true. Yeah, I don't know how to digitize either. Um, just kidding. I can do enough to be dangerous. That's for sure. Um, yeah,
Dangerous being the key word.
anytime. I thought Jeff would have been back by now, but
I think he done left us. Well, I'll
but he's
tell
gonna
you
come back.
about connections. And when I first started digitizing, I I picked up a really big account in Canby, Oregon, a really, really big account. And they got so angry at me because my digitizing trainer told me that starts and stops don't matter.
Yeah, that's not
Okay.
Right.
true.
I got booted from that job post haste, and a very experienced digitizer said, "You have no business digitizing, ma'am." Oh man, I tell you, I got real butt hurt over that. And so I said, "Will you please teach me?" I mean, they were really good, and they refused. And so I was out on my own. They picked up that account. They were absolutely right. I should not have been digitizing for a very large professional account because connections do matter, and so do the trims. And I just had everything bing, 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 because that's what my trainer, my professional software trainer, told me. It ain't no big thing. It's a big thing.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah, I had.
Yeah. Pathing and connections and
Yes.
all that. It's just
Very.
gonna have your machine running a lot more efficient and cutting
Yes.
down time. You know, doing 10 aprons, it may not be that big of a deal, but when you're doing hundreds of shirts or hundreds of hats or thousands of pieces, you know that
Big deal.
that 30 seconds that it adds every run or that minute because you're trimming or that needle's picking up when it shouldn't, it's going to add time to production, and time is money when you're in production. So
Well,
yeah.
part of the, oh, go ahead. Sorry, Matthew.
No, I was just going to say that it's the drawback of having a digitizer that hasn't been on a machine
Yes.
is they're looking at it as more as artwork and just trying to make the design look like the original in stitches, and not looking at it as the production value of it and making sure that that design is going to be, you know, the best efficient working design for them and embroiderer.
Well, there's that thing where people charge by stitches. Like they say, okay, this is a 5,000 stitch design. You need to figure out how long it takes based on where your colors are. How long does it take the pantograph to move to the next color and back? You have to know
Mhm.
what every trim, every tie in, every trim, every move over, tie in, you know what I mean, like a tie off, a trim, a move over, a tie in. All of that adds up. So is it a 5,000 stitch design or is it a 7,000 stitch design? Charge
Right.
for your time, which is what Justin is saying. You can go into a large production shop, which is where Justin is. He's in that area, and you can, if you can get one more run a day on a multi head, you're making money. Whereas if you are not able to do that because the digitizing isn't right, or you haven't added in your colors and your stitch count, haven't added that time in there, you can lose a run a day. And if that's 48 shirts, that's 48 shirts or a
Hmm.
thousand shirts. I mean, however many heads you have. So it
No,
matters a
absolutely.
lot. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and like here's a prime example of that. 50
Ooh,
stars. I mean, imagine 50 tie-ins and
50
tie-outs.
trims.
This small little. I mean, this is what um,
Well, not to
maybe
mention that.
30 millimeter.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I was going to say how small those elements are. Not only you going to have a trim on every single star, but you're going to have that knot that on the back side it's going to be, you're going to have those knots. You're going to have more chance of
Yes.
thread breaks. You're going to
Yeah.
have more chance of needle breaks when you're trying to do
Yeah.
a small element like that. Not only are the stitches so close together, but then now you're going to put a lock stitch into there.
Yeah.
It's just an issue.
And every time that you do that, what does your machine do? Every single time. When
Right.
those needles could be going up and down instead of making all these movements and your pantograph is moving. I mean, oh, that's really, I like that.
yeah. Here's one that I did.
I
I think
really like it.
last week or whatever. This was a rush order I had.
I
So
love that.
this E thing here, when I first digitized it, because it loops over itself, I ended it all right in this spot right here. So I had all those colors tie in and tie out, and it was super bulletproof right
Oh
there.
man.
So if I actually click on the first element, um, let's see, I'll do it this way, right here. So you can see I'm tying in randomly right here, tying out randomly there. The
Yeah.
next one in another random spot, just so I can keep them spread out. And this one ties in a little closer, and then yeah, there it gets a little ugly because I couldn't really do much about it. But originally, yeah, it was all one object that came all the way around.
Yeah,
I mean,
when it comes to pathing or tie in and tie out and stuff, it's not just a matter of a straight line where it starts here, ends here. You know, if it makes sense to the design and you're outlining something in a running stitch like this design we are working on today,
mm,
um, say like you're not using a back stitch like Jeff did. Typically on a running stitch outline, I'll do at least two passes over it.
okay.
So you know if it goes travels one way, it'll come back to the same point. So there's two layers of running stitches. But if that means that instead of it trimming right there and going on to the next object, that it might have to go over a third time on just a portion of that outline, it's not going to be that visible where it takes away from the quality of the design. So, you know, keeping that needle down and it maybe backtracks it on itself a half inch to travel to the next object, and something where you can run over underneath an object where you know it's going to sew on top of it. So you're actually traveling through the design. You're using that needle to kind of travel through that design to the next element instead of that trim with that needle up the trim and everything else that's going on with that.
Yeah,
So just things like that where you got to think about it.
time savers completely. It's important. And hey, I want to call you out, Matthew. You said you couldn't digitize. You are such a little fibber.
Yeah, I know I need more practice, but
You can
No,
practice on that patch for me anytime. I really like that.
he's sneaky good.
He is good.
He'll send me a design and be like, "Hey, I'm thinking about just having you do this one. I don't know if I can handle it." And then the next day, I'll see it sampled on his Facebook page or something.
yeah, I figured I'd give it a shot. But
You do
yeah,
all right. You guys are dangerous anyway, brainiacs.
yeah, I just wanted to show this one last real quick. So this is one that I another rush order. I had 2 days to make 30 of these. Yeah, so that was a lot of fun, including digitizing. Um, but the issue I had is the last object I believe are the talons, and it's tying in, and it's a
Yeah.
really small area right here. For I mean, it's six
Yep.
millimeters with three talons, and then I have a run stitch running in between just to kind of help it. You can't really see them, but again, I had 2 days, and I flew one of the 2 days, so I really only had one day. But that was a tie-in and a tie-out for these three, then a tie-in and tie-out for these three. So then what I actually did for the last sample and for the actual production is I ran a single run stitch here from one over to the others, and it's green to show you so you can actually see it. And then I changed
I see.
the stitch length to I think I did like 8 or 9, and then I got rid of the variable length so that I don't get any small ones. So I have a tie. Well, there's no tie-in, but it's tie-in for the yellow. This punch point right here, one in the middle, one there, and then into this talon, and then a tie out. So I only had a tie-in and a tie out. So I cut out the whole tie out and all that. And then
Good.
I have these awesome
Really
little
good.
squeezers, and
Surgicals.
it takes me about 10 seconds a patch to cut that. And instead of having a super sharp point that you can feel, it's a lot smoother.
That's a really good tip.
And I've learned that if you do something like this, you don't do it along the grain, you go against the grain, otherwise you're digging out that point.
And
There's
why is
Yeah,
that?
it's kind of the opposite of trying to drop that drop stitch in the middle of a fill, trying to hide it. Uh, Kind of traveling over an object that is underneath, and you're dropping that stitch to try to hide that travel stitch or stitch in between letters. This is kind of the opposite, where you're doing against the grain, do a really long stitch length, and you're trying to get that really loose thread left over so you can manually trim.
Oh, that's so cute. Stop
Here's one that I
it.
did last year, I think. This was the first set of patches I did on the Happy, and this is what I was talking about. I'm like, you know what? Jeff taught me how to do anchors, which is what he calls these. So instead of tying in on, this is an individual element, hand digitized star, and then I went to the next one, and a tie in and tie out was, I had to make 200 of these, and I started like November 28th and had to be delivered by Christmas.
Ooh,
So I had a lot to do. So that was where the this was. But like I remember this one right here was nearly impossible to get out because it was pretty much buried in the
Yeah, I can see that.
yeah in the fill.
Yeah.
So that's where I
Amen.
learned very aggressive angles. But
I like that cute little thing. That's a cute
I,
little patch.
I did it here too
Yep,
because I
that's smart.
left the patch because it's going to get cut anyways when I cut the border out,
Hmm.
and then it's just snip snip, and it's just like two
That's
tails.
smart. Jeff's kind of smart like that, huh?
Yeah. Oh, and this one was hard too.
You don't have to talk about him like that. He's not here.
I
Yeah,
know he can't defend himself.
we'll ban him from
Okay,
using
right
this.
now I'm running over there.
And then I also have it pulled up in Embrilliance. So I don't know if you've seen this feature yet. I'm running a really old version of Embrilliance. Sorry, Eric, I haven't updated. But this is their density map. So I'm just pulling in a DST because I obviously you just saw I had it in WillCom,
Hmm.
but it's showing me in so blue is cool, so it's very light, but red is dangerous. So you can see where I have all of
Yeah,
my
it looks.
points.
Yeah,
So it's a little. It definitely was very dense in this area right here because there's like 4 fills I have going on in there.
that's a really cool feature.
And then this one, yeah, you can see right here, it's
Yeah,
very dense.
yeah, because you did not know that. That is
Yeah.
really sharp. I like that.
And then here's that one to get back
Yep.
to our
I'm not a
regular
fan of the
schedule.
black background though at
You can
all.
change it, but
Oh, good, because in some softwares you cannot, and it's like that's just plain cruel,
and
in my
we're in
opinion.
what I like to call the matrix.
We're definitely in that. I feel like we should start glowing in the dark. Well, so that is, I really learned a lot tonight, even being a digitizer. I learned some cool stuff. So, does anybody have any questions out there?
We actually have a lot of comments to go back to.
Okay,
We kind of ignored them, so
Matthew.
gonna bring up Justin's screen because that's when Cindy originally commented on this, and I pulled it up, but we didn't read it. So she's saying maybe a global underlay to have all the color sequence together and keep good registration.
Global underlay, it's not really good in this design only because the fill densities are really, really light fill, so
Hmm.
you're not going to hide them. So that's the only drawback of that. But yes,
What?
if you are worried about registration, you're kind of grouping objects like that, and you have full fills, a global underlay would kind of tack down that material and help it not have so much movement.
Could you do it in the same color as the apron, Justin? Would that be of any benefit whatsoever?
You could. I think it still might be a little bit, depending on the color of the apron.
Yeah.
Yeah, you might be able to see it a little bit, but
Okay.
Cool. And then Letty, well, and actually, given that it's more for a younger crowd, I'd stick with the basic primary colors, same as pencil
Mm.
color as bus. So, yeah, I mean,
Yeah, considering they're little kids. I mean, daycare. You could even take out a couple. But Justin, you did great getting that down to 15.
yeah, that whole IKEA cabinet back there is just my random threads. Um, I'm trying to move towards not buying threads because there's actually a tub on the laser.
Sure you are.
Right here, this tub is all just for this set of orders, and I'm probably never going to use these again.
Oh, now that stings.
But it was $70 for the thread, so
Well, you better use it again then.
paid for it. So if anyone wants some orange and purple and another purple.
I heard
green,
free
green.
thread out there, folks.
Okay, so here's the reason why Jeff is gone.
Now that
He
is
had
funny.
his first beer in a long time.
Yep.
He's probably
That
passed
I'd
out.
like to see. I'd pay for it.
His dog's licking his face. Valentina, I don't have the Wilcom. I have Chroma.
Yep.
Yeah, Jeff actually has the Chroma Digitizing group and has some videos in there too that are
Hmm.
probably similar. I think he did it Digitizing 911 in Chroma too. I think. But unfortunately, he can't save and send the file out. So
He
it's
can't
kinda
say anything at this point. We can say anything we want.
yeah, do as I do because I can't give you what I do.
Don't do as I say. Oh, fonts are
Um,
hard for you, lettering. Yeah.
yeah, need a webinar for that.
Oh, we don't know what happened to Jeff, honestly, Suzanne. He just like went poof, and here we are, we three.
It's like that one live I was trash talking Google and everything, and then I disappeared too. Like I don't know if you remember.
You know what I think? I think he just left. Yeah,
Yeah,
listen,
I did
you.
it that time. The
I,
first
I
time I
think
didn't.
that Jiffy ran out for a sour popsicle. That's what I think.
You know, he probably actually found a machine on Craigslist or Facebook for sale, and
Yeah, he has to go run out and buy that or something.
um, so she says she can do fonts, but images she can't do. I have to put source those. I have Hatch too, actually, as well.
Well, you will though. I mean, it's a matter of experience. When we first started, we couldn't do it either. You should have seen me when I first learned to digitize. I was so ridiculous that somebody sent me a file with a whole bunch of E's in it, and I felt like I really had to earn my money, so I digitized every freaking E. I felt like I was cheating. When a more experienced digitizer came in and said, "Jerry Lee, why aren't you copying and pasting those?" And I said, because they paid me to digitize it. Oh God, don't do that.
Yeah,
Copy paste.
I still have my first digitized file floating around here somewhere, but I
That ought to be scary.
redid, and yeah, it's horrendous. It's
We don't know
like
where Jeff is. Jeff went poof. None of us know where he is.
yeah. Okay, and then not good for changing
Charging for
embroidery.
embroidery or
Uh,
changing.
yeah, I wish I had employees. Maybe we could actually get things done.
Ah, Justin, send her some designs. It took
Yeah,
years to get here.
Krista used to live here and work for us, and
Nice.
I,
Where'd
I
you
miss
move to?
having I miss having her as an operator. She was awesome.
Aw, where'd you move to, Crystal?
She's back in Maine, I believe.
I can see where you want to move. Don't worry, Valentina. You will know what we know by doing. You need to practice and you need to hang in. I'm what about 25 years in. Justin, you're at what 28 years thereabouts,
Yeah,
and Mr. Matthew, you're at 82. Am I right?
It was actually 83. Is it
That's
guessing
what I
right
thought. I
here?
was at least 1 year off.
All right,
Yeah, but
close.
you gotta just hang in there. And the best teacher, besides listening to people who have the knowledge, but the best teacher is experience, running a machine, running the designs.
No, I've only been doing this since late 2016, I think. But
Yeah, but still, you're very good.
I'm definitely not what I would call a pro. I would definitely say I can make some correct
I'm gonna
decisions
say you
and
ain't no
a
newbie,
lot
baby.
of not so correct decisions.
You are so not a newbie. I
I
don't
don't
know what
remember
you're
what
loving,
half
but
of
we
this is
love it
about.
too.
And then that was just a thought.
Hmm.
I don't remember
It was a
that.
good
Oh,
question, though.
that's
It
for
was a
global
good
underlay.
it was a good question because if it was a different application, then global underlay would be the perfect thing.
Mhm.
In this one, it's not, but in other areas, it'd be just superb.
Okay, so I was looking to see if Jeff texted me, but he must have had aliens or something. If you're
Ah,
closer, let you borrow some of mine. I have a whole wall of thread.
well,
I
he's
have
coming.
too much thread already. And
I
actually, I
agree.
found out that there's a dealer for Madeira and Issacord in RA right down the street from me. So that has
That is
been the worst
dangerous.
thing for my bank account.
Allie, take the cards. Run, girl. We don't know. He
Gone.
got sucked up off the
Wait,
face of the planet.
now hiring Nerd One.
We don't know where Nerd One left. That's because we had a little chat.
Yeah,
That's how he went up to Hatch, and he's segueing from Hatch to Wilcom. But yeah, we had a little chat, and the words were, "I really hate using this software, but I use it because I have it." And I said, "But are you happy digitizing?" No. I said, "If you can, then Hatch is maybe where you might want to consider." The next day, I get an image. Look, Jerry Lee, I've got Hatch. Nice. I have Hatch too.
Yeah, the one thing I really like about Hatch is if you have the full paid one, which is like
Mhm,
$1,200,
mhm.
or it's $1,000, I believe.
I think
But
it
if you
is.
do the flex payments, it's 1,200 because it's securities or whatever.
Yeah, yeah.
But it has pretty much everything that Wilcom has. So
We are going to do that. I need a
you're gonna
patch tonight. That's the
have to
next
wait a
one. We've
little
lost
bit.
our nerd.
I'm a little busy, but good thing we got two digitizers up here that can do the
That
file
that
editing.
guy right there, because we've lost a nerd. LOL. Where is Jeff? We need a jiffy. He's
Uh,
going to hear about this. Oh
Yes,
yes,
Cindy, you're correct. We're going to be on Christine's show tomorrow.
yes. At
yep.
what time? It's 11 a.m. PST. It's 2 p.m. EST. Be there. 1 p.m. Jiffy time.
Three,
Oh,
isn't it?
what? I thought it was three.
Well, hell,
It's
I don't
three.
know. Okay, it's 3. What do I know?
Oh, it is.
It's
Okay,
noon
good.
my time, noon his time, and what time your time?
Three. I
It
don't
is
know.
nuts.
I think it's
I
three
thought it was
Eastern.
three because I have a student tomorrow. So, well, I guess
Three
three.
Eastern.
It's noon for me, which is good. So thank
Well,
you. Because my
be
question
there
was,
or be square.
yeah, or we'll talk to you about that later.
And then I guess you got it right. It was Maine. Good
Hey,
job.
good guess, buds. You're welcome. We're so glad you're here.
Um,
There you go. Yep,
oh yeah, we already did that
yep. We're
one.
gonna do that. Yep. See, so just Dustin knows. Dustin was got real serious about it. He said, "I want to." He wants to become a patch maker.
Okay. Well, I think that's pretty much all we have. We
Yep.
have other things we need to get to. Just want to say thanks for watching. And if you haven't, just want to plug one thing real quick. You should hop over to the Discord application. So if you, I,
We're over there.
I would just say join it because it's very close knit community. And if you have questions that need immediate answering, there you go. And there's
Two,
deals and coupons in there. So if you
two,
need to do
two
that,
Texas time tomorrow. Noon my time, 2 Texas time,
there you go. Okay.
and that
Discord.
too.
So
Okay,
thanks for
guys. Thank you
watching.
so
I'm Matt
much.
Enderly. Everyone else can introduce themselves again.
I'm going to go look for Jeff.
Okay.
Please, I'm gonna go look for Jeff. I think
Yeah.
he's running the streets out here in Coeur d'Alene. Maybe he's in Tucson.
As long as
Maybe
it
he's
has,
maybe he's gotten deployed and it's top secret and somebody isn't telling us, nerd
well,
two.
hopefully
Did you
there's not
off him?
an Iowa man was arrested while, but well,
I think I just got a text.
all
It
right.
was
Well,
me.
thanks for watching. We
Yep.
gotta go.
We gotta go find Jeff.
See you next week.
Yep,
Bye,
see you
guys.
next time. Bye.